Hello everyone, Madeline from Team Dribble here. I run all the workshops at Dribble. How are you all doing? Good to see so many people in here. I think we've got about 300 people in this interactive workshop. I'd love to
Hello
hear
everyone, Madeline from Team
where
Dribble
you
here.
guys
I
are
run all the
from.
workshops at Dribble. How are you all doing?
Oh, I've
Good to
got a
see
bit of
so many
feedback.
people in here.
Sorry about that. Um, Hi guys, I'd love to hear where you guys are all joining from. I think we've got a really international bunch. I saw some people coming from someone from Nigeria, someone from the West Coast, Long Island, New York, Portugal. Amazing. Israel, thank you so much for staying up late. If it's super late there, we appreciate it. It's my morning. I know that it's the Editor X's team evening. So I appreciate you guys. Los Angeles, Ohio, Detroit, a lot of people from the US, Yemen. Well, welcome. And I hope that you're excited for this interactive hands-on workshop with Editor X. It's going to be a really fun few hours of learning and creating responsive web design. So I've got a couple of housekeeping things to do first, but we're so excited to be joined by Gail Erez and Ido for our responsive web design workshop with Editor X. You guys are in the best hands here. So I've got a few housekeeping notes first. Firstly, use this chat to get to know each other. You could share the things that you create in the chat. You could share your portfolios in the chat. We really like to keep these sessions interactive and engaging. So use the chat to say hi. We love to hear from you. This workshop is going to be broken down into, firstly, a presentation and talk by Gale, who's the head of product at Editor X, and then Ido, who's going to be doing a sort of live demo and going to be talking you through how to design responsive design on Editor X. And then you're going to be having the chance to actually create web designs for yourself and then ask loads of questions and ask questions live to Gale and Ido. If you guys are watching on YouTube, we are going to be collecting your questions and asking them live as well. So make sure you ask your questions on YouTube and we'll get a chance to ask them here. Don't worry if you find yourself a bit lost or if you've got lots of questions when designing your website. Part of this workshop, we're going to open out into different lounges and there are going to be 8 different experts here to help you. And so when you get to the chance to create your website, jump into a lounge, you could turn your microphone on, you could turn your camera on, and you could ask the experts any questions that you have. We're really, really excited to see what you create in this workshop. We'd love for you to share your web design creations on social media. You could use any social media platform and tag Editor X and Dribble. We'll be resharing and retweeting and reposting any design.
Oh, you've mastered this. If you can play a game where you're being shown a design and you know off the bat, like, oh, you should be using grid. No, you should be using a layouter. So I really hope all of you get to that pro level. And I'm going to dive a bit into the grid and into the layouter. So the grid, I like to call it the fancy layout because it's much more complex. It's a 2-dimensional grid-based layout, and you can take any container or section and apply a grid to it. And then you place the elements on top of it and you dock them to all these grid lines you have created. And basically, when the screen resizes, they know because they are docked to one of the lines if to get closer to that line, if to resize towards that line. And it just really helps dividing the big space into smaller spaces. And it's really amazing for overlapping layouts and when you want to get really precise and you're working with like a very complex design. Another cool thing about the grid is that you can control every column and row how it resizes. So there's like tons of unit types. You're going to see some of this during the workshop with Ido. You'll see how to use it, and you can change that per breakpoint. So I would say the grid is probably the most powerful tool for responsive design. The second tool is very popular. It's the layouter, and I call it the lazy layouter because it's much more simple than the grid. And the reason why it's so simple because it has a lot more constraints. You could say it's one-dimensional, and it does a lot of the work for you because when there's no more space, it just wraps the content in a Z path. So it looks great no matter what you do almost. So after sharing all these like tools, it can sound a bit overwhelming. So I gathered tips from our team. I asked them, like, what would you want me to share? What are the things that help you most? So I took four that I thought were very, very helpful. And I'm going to share them with you right now. So the first one is all about deconstructing your design. So I'm sure each designer here has a different process, and the process can also depend, if on the project you're working on. I like to sometimes work from start with wireframes and then bring them to life. Sometimes I just like to use the canvas freely and not worry about, the construction. Just not stop the creative process and just run with it. So it, the thing is, though, that no matter what process you use, it is really important how you structure the site, because when you structure it well, it's just going to make your work so much easier later on with other screen sizes. So how do you kind of get from start to end? Something that I suggest is, first of all, always look at your design and try to split it into sections. It is much easier to grasp the whole thing when you're dealing with smaller chunks. And then when each one of these sections, it's much easier to make a decision what tool to use. If you want to use the grid, the layouter, so it just makes it much easier. And we also have a feature where you can save a design you created. So if you are in the mood to just freely design and not worry about it, just go ahead and do that, and then you can just save your design and use it as a reference and rebuild it. Now that you know kind of the end of the story, it's much easier to do. So actually, these decisions will become really quickly intuitive after you start playing around. And again, this is going to save you a lot of time if you reconstruct your design and really think through it. The second tip is about overrides. So, like I mentioned before, overrides are the changes you are making in different breakpoints. And Editor X works in a cascading way. So, it means that you're making a design on desktop, and then on smaller breakpoints, you make specific decisions that are overriding the bigger breakpoints. But the thing is, it's really important to know what can be overridden and what cannot be overridden, because whatever cannot be overridden is going to affect all of your breakpoints. So I gathered a few examples to kind of bring that idea more in a more visual way. So here we can see a site that has the very common case where you have on desktop a horizontal menu, and then on mobile you have a hamburger menu. So the thing is, the gap here is too big between these two kind of designs. So instead of trying to override, you're actually going to use two separate components. And then you're going to hide on desktop the hamburger menu. And on mobile, you're going to hide the horizontal menu. Because as we said, it's just one canvas. So actually, if you try to delete on mobile the horizontal menu, it's going to be lost everywhere. It's not going to appear not on the desktop and not on any breakpoint, because basically you removed it from the structure. And structure is something that you cannot change per breakpoint. It's not the design or layout, it is the way your elements are actually being contained in one another. So in this example, you can see that I've moved that Shop Now button from being the child of the left container, and now it is the child of the right container. And when I do that, it's actually going to be the same for all the different breakpoints, because this relationship is really important to how things resize, because they affect each other. Many times when you make things in percentage, they are in percentage of the parent. So this is actually something that can get a bit complicated, and you will experience it throughout the workshop. And it can create a lot of frustration if you are not aware of what can be changed and what cannot. You don't want to get into a situation where you're designing the whole desktop and making it just perfect, and then moving into mobile and making a bunch of different changes in the structure just to go back to desktop and find out everything is moved around. So, kind of think of this complexity as well when you're restructuring your design. The last example here about overriding is that it might have sounded till now like there isn't much you can override, but actually you can go really far with overrides, because you can change your whole layout and you can change all of the design properties. So this is an example where on desktop, my image is sitting on the right side of the text and the button. And I used here on this sandy color, this really slick outline of a button. But when we moved to mobile, I wanted my image to become the background. Now you can see it's really hard to see the outline of the button. So this is the perfect case for using overrides. I would probably change the color to a white or something that would stand out. And this will only apply on the breakpoint that I'm doing this on. The third tip is all about walking through the breakpoint. So because it's one site, it doesn't mean that each breakpoint is gonna be the same. When you think of desktop and mobile, there's a very different types of best practices and optimizations you should be doing. Okay, so for example, on desktop, especially today, when you have like these huge iMacs and whatever, you're dealing with huge screens and you want to make sure that it's easy to consume a lot of content, but also that the experience and moving the pointer between different like steps, if it's a wizard, whatever it is, it's super comfortable for a big desktop. And when you think about mobile, you want to make sure that it's comfortable to tap buttons with your fingers. So you want to think of the size of your buttons on mobile or on tablet. Okay. And there's this kind of ongoing conflict if you should be starting on mobile and move to slowly to desktop, or if you should do the opposite, start from desktop and go into your mobile design. I'm a fan of starting on desktop just because it's, for me at least, it's much easier to kind of uh, get everything out there and make like the most complicated version of my site on desktop, and then move on to mobile, and start hiding elements as much as possible. I kind of like to play this game of like Marie Kondo style of, does this bring me joy? Do I need this to kind of pass on my message across on mobile? And after all the work we have done, I think the most important tip here is to test your site. As we designers take a bigger role and more responsibility and ownership of the process using all these no code tools, no code means that we are the ones who are debugging. So I really suggest that you think about how the site at the end represents you and your professionalism. So you want to make sure it is exactly how you intended it to be. And I encounter on a daily basis, and I'm sure all of you, all these tiny little mistakes that you think that was so easy to avoid. I off the bat I thought of like three different ones that I keep seeing all the time. One, of course, is that links that are not working. Sometimes on mobile, it doesn't reach the same URL and stuff like that. Another one that happens a lot is when you enter an e-commerce site. Maybe this has happened to you before, but there's always a pop-up that suggests you to sign up to get a discount. There's like numerous times where the close button was just like off my screen and I couldn't get out of the situation and I couldn't shop the site. And the last one I thought of that I've also seen a lot is when you are on an e-commerce site and you want to get to the footer to see like the return policy. You can't get there because the gallery is an endless scroll, so you just keep scrolling and scrolling. Gets you in a pretty funny situation. So I really recommend testing your site, and not just that things are working, but also that it looks great on as many screen sizes as you can get your hands on. So just like reach out to your surrounding, to your colleagues, to your family, wherever friends, wherever you can get a device. So those were the four things. And just to summarize, so we talked about deconstructing your site. It's going to be a really great payback at the end of the day. The second one is all about controlling changes. So you really want to learn and know what can be changed and what cannot. So so everything goes by smoothly. The third one is all about thinking about the medium, really walk through it, think about the experience there. And the last one is all about testing. Don't forget to test your site. I think, that is the most important thing at the end. And that's it for me. I hope this was useful and helpful. And we're gonna move on to Ido. So let's start the webinar. And I can't wait to see what you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gelly. That was absolutely amazing to hear from you and hear all your really experienced insights into responsive web design. Gelly is going to be back a bit later on to answer all of your questions you have. We're going to be taking questions from YouTube as well. So if you have any questions for Gelly, the head of product at EditorX, be sure to put them in the question and answer tab and be sure to ask them on YouTube. Now we're going to have a live demo on how to create responsive design from EditorX web developer and responsive design expert, Ido Hershowitz. So take it away, Ido.
Hello to everyone joining us today. My name is Ido. I'm a web developer and technical designer for EditorX. And thank you, Gali, for that wonderful presentation. So guys, we're going to start the practical part now. We're going to take the concepts that Gali talked about and explore them in the short time that we have. And by the end of this talk, you will be able to implement the methods that will let you take a design concept and turn it into a real life responsive website on EditorX. And immediately following this demo, you're going to take it even a step further and build your own responsive design. All right, so let me just share my screen here. All right, so I thought of a way to demonstrate building a responsive design, and immediately this project came to mind. So this is a real world assignment that my team was given. So this actually demonstrates a real situation that we needed to tackle. So we had to build this site, which revolved around a video documentary series about the new wave of digital designers. So this is the site. It has a header. It has this hero with big typography section. Right after that, we have this cool full width video. It takes the full width and full height of the screen and really gives like a really cool cinematic effect. After that, we're introducing the designers that are featured in the documentary series. Then there's a CTA, some more articles, another CTA, and a footer. All right, so what are we going to cover today? We're going to build a responsive, fluid desktop design. We're going to be building this introduction of the designer section. Next thing that we're going to do, we're going to implement some hover interactions. As you can see, as I hover over this portfolio bit, it makes this cool interaction here. And after that, we're going to redesign our site for tablet and mobile breakpoints. All right, so this is the section that we're going to build. It has the designer's name, it has a description, and also a quote. Obviously, the video itself, which is the main part, and the portfolio link. So when building from a design, we need to choose the best layouting tool for that particular design. So EditorX has a variety of tools that we can use. We have CSS Grid, Layouter, which is based on Flexbox technology. Gali talked about these tools. Stack, which is a great tool for vertical relationships between elements. Now, as you can see, we have here 3 designers, and let's just call these items, all right? So you see that the design and the layout for each item here is basically the same. So we're going to use a tool called the repeater, and it's going to let us use the same design and layout for each designer. So in fact, we're only going to need to design the item once, and it will repeat 2 more times just with different content. Now, of course, the objective here is to create a responsive design. So right off the bat, you can see that if I just change my screen size here, you see that everything is scaling perfectly proportional. The images and texts are growing and shrinking in a proportional way. And that's because we're using responsive size units. We're not using fixed pixel scale. We're using percentage and responsive units. And we're also using text scaling, which scales between the size of the fonts. I'll talk about that in a bit. What we can also see here is that when we get to a certain screen width, we have a change in layout and design. So we implement this behavior using breakpoints, which let us define ranges of screen widths to work in. All right, I think it's time we'll dive into Editor X. I'm going to do a quick overview of the platform, and then we can dive into the build. All right. So this is Editor X. This is the canvas that we're going to be working on. Let me just go to the page that I want. Yes. So we have these handles here that let us resize our canvas and let us go between all the widths that we want to check and all the breakpoints that we want to design on. And we can also use these breakpoint navigation buttons here in the top of the screen. So I can go from desktop to tablet to mobile. These can also be customizable, and you can also add custom breakpoints, up to 6 breakpoints here. All right, so I think first thing that I'm going to show you is the add panel here. So here you can add elements to your canvas. The quick add panel has like the most common elements that we would add, but there's also an abundance of elements here in categories, and you can check that out in your own time because it's really a lot. And next up is the layers panel. So the layers panel is basically the structure of our site. So we see that our site here is our page is divided into section, and each section has its own elements inside it. It can be a container, and a container can have elements inside it as well. So this is basically the hierarchy of the site. And here on the far right side, we have the inspector panel. Let me just select an element here. So basically the inspector is the heart of Editor X. It lets us choose an element, and it will be represented here in the inspector panel. And from here you can tweak all the sizing options, positioning, and of course you can do everything with drag and drop and move things around. But if you want to really fine tune some things, then you can do it through here. There's also a design panel here. Lets you set background, borders, shadows, things like that. And if we're using a container, then you'll have also the hover interactions panel and the inspector as well. Okay, so let's start by adding a section. So I'm going to go to this section here, and you see these plus buttons that appear here. And I'll just click one of these buttons and add a blank section. All right, so you see it added a section here. I'm just going to change the background color here real quick. Just add a color here. All right, so I think this is as a beginning, we'll quickly explain sizing and docking in Editor X. So I'm just going to go to my add panel here, and I'm going to add from my media, I'm going to add an image here. All right, I'll just resize it a bit. And when I add an element to a section, then basically now this element is the child of the section, and the section is its parent. And if I look in the layers panel, I can also see that. You see the section here, and there's an image here. If I go to my inspector panel and into the layout tab, then we see some properties here. And we see that the width now is almost at 20%. So it's 20%. What that means is it's 20% from the width of its parent. So if its parent grows or shrinks in size, then the image, the child inside, will also grow and shrink. And I'll just show you that. As I resize my screen, you're seeing that the image is also resizing. This is because it's relating to its direct parent, which is the section. So just as an example, I want to quickly add a container into the section as well. All right, so now, of course, the container itself is also a direct child of the section. But let's see what will happen if I drag this image into the container. So as I'm dragging the image into the container, you see that it hasn't visually changed in size, but if you look at the width here, you'll see that it's now 58%. And that's because it's not relating to the section anymore, it's relating to the container itself, and it takes up 58% of its width. All right, so another thing about sizing that I wanted to show here. So basically, you can also use a fixed size. You don't have to use responsive size if you don't want to. This is flexible. So I'm gonna just click fixed here. And immediately you see that we have a width now of 460 pixels and a height of 270 pixels. And you can guess now that if I resize my screen, well, actually, the image is going to stay the same. It's not going to change in size because it's in a fixed size. All right, so many people ask me, well, why would you want to use fixed sizes if you're building responsive design? Well, sometimes you would want an element to be in a fixed size and maybe have other elements be responsive around them. Another use case for this, which you can also do, is mix fluid units with fixed units. So for example, I can change the width of this image just by pushing the blue pixel button here. And then I'm going to change now this to percentage. And notice the width is now 30.5%, but the height is still in pixels. So what's going to happen when I resize? The height is going to stay the same, but the width is changing. All right, so now that we've understood sizing, let's talk a bit about positioning. We can take this image and just drag it around the section. And when I drag it around, you see these blue dotted lines that appear. This is called auto docking, and it happens as I move elements across the screen. So what is docking anyway? So we can see here that this element, this image, is now docked to the bottom and to the left side of the section. And docking is basically the relationship in position between a child element and its parent. So we see that now it's docked 6.3% to the left and 52 pixels to the right, to the bottom, sorry. So no matter how I change my screen size, no matter what happens, no matter even if I make my section taller, it's still going to keep the same relationship in terms of position. Another thing that we can do with docking, let me just make this a bit bigger. And I'm going to dock this image now to both sides and let's say to the bottom, all right? And now we can define that the relationship between the image from both sides will be fixed. Let's say that I put in 100 pixels from the left and 100 pixels from the right. And let's just leave it at 47 pixels from the bottom. So now when I resize, you'll see that because it's docked 100 pixels from the left and right, this will always keep the same behavior. Actually, like you can imagine these as like these really steel bars that can change. Of course, you can set this in percentages as well. Let's just convert this to percentage for a second. So if I convert 100 pixels in this particular width that I'm in, it's going to be 6.6. It's still going to keep a relationship, but now this relationship is in percentage. All right, so now that we've understood positioning and sizing, I think that we can start building. All right, so I have this section here. And as I said, we're going to use a tool called a repeater. So let's just go to the add panel and add this repeater in. And by default, when I add it from the add panel, it gives me a repeater with three repeater items. And I can also manage these items and add more. And as you can see, the layout here is sort of like a card layout. That's by default. But the cool thing about the repeater is that I can change layouts between breakpoints. So let's say that I go now to tablet breakpoint, and I see here that my repeater is still in a card layout, but then I can go and change that, and I can change this repeater into a list layout now. So now on tablet, it's going to be a list of cards, one under the other. Um, as Gali also mentioned, in Editor X, we have the cascading rule. And what the cascading rule means is that if I do a change in a certain breakpoint, for example, here in tablet, then if it's a design or layout change, it won't affect the breakpoint above. It will affect the current breakpoint and the breakpoint below. So if I go to mobile now, you'll see that we still have this list here because this cascaded down from tablet. And if I go back to desktop, you'll see that it has not changed. It's still here in cards view. And I can even go to mobile here, and let's say that in mobile, I want to change the layout again. And I want, this time I want the layout to be a slider. And let me just add some margins here so we can see better. And now if I preview this, you'll see that in mobile, I have this slider. So now the user can potentially swipe with his fingers to change, to go between the items. All right, let's go back to editing in the site, and let's go to desktop. I'll just remove this repeater and add in another one because I don't want the changes that we made. So I'm going to add in a repeater. And actually, we're going to use a repeater that has a list layout throughout all the breakpoints. So I'm going to change this to list. And another thing that I'm going to do, we have this button here, which is stretch. I'm going to hit it. And basically what stretch does, remember when we talked about docking before? So when I use stretch, it docks the element to all sides of its parents at 0 pixels. So now the repeater is stretched across the section. I'm going to remove the vertical margins that I have here. And now I'm going to go to the inspector panel. I selected one of the items in my repeater. I'm going to go to the inspector, and I'm going to remove the background because I don't need a background for it. And immediately when I change it in one repeater item, you'll see the change applied in the two others as well because it's a repeater and it's a repeating layout and design. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a layouting tool to this item, and I'm going to use a grid. So I'm selected on the item, and I choose Apply Grid. And Editor X offers some templates, but I'm going to actually use a custom grid here. And this grid is going to be 2 columns and 3 rows. And of course, because I added a grid here in the first item, then you'll see the grid in the second and third item as well. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add some padding to my item. So I want some space between the edge of the item and the content. So I'm going to give it 2.5% from the left, 6% from the top, and 2.5%, sorry, 4.5% from the right. I want a bigger padding here. All right, then you can see the padding represented with this green overlay. So I just want to get into the grid for a minute. So I'm going to adjust grid and then edit grid. And we see here that we have 3 rows and 2 columns. So I can just edit the height of these rows. And if I go in there, I see for now that it's gotten a default value, and it says minimum 117 pixels and maximum max content. So basically what that means, that if there is no content inside my rows, if there's nothing in here, then it will keep a minimum of 117 pixels. If this was just max content and there was no content inside, the row would simply collapse, and we don't want that. So we're giving it a minimum here. All right. And as for the columns, you see that we have one FR and one FR. So what FR means is basically we have these columns, and they're each taking one fraction of the width of this certain container. And I actually want to change this because I want this column to be a bit wider. And I'm going to this column, and I'm going to say that it's going to be 1.2 FR. All right, and now that we fixed our grid, we can start adding elements. I'm going to add a title here. I'm going to edit it, change the color to white. I'm going to add a font here of my choice. I'm going to bring in the content that needs to be here. Just paste that in. All right, and actually I want to make this in caps. I'm also going to set a font size. So let's just start with a font size of 70 pixels. And I'm going to go to the inspector panel, and I'm going to dock just a quick explanation about the grid here, something that I did not mention. So this grid here is not a grid in the way that the designers typically use grid. So like in some design software, you would use a grid to place elements or for some snapping of elements to the grid or as guides. And in Editor X, the grid is a layouting tool. And what it does, it helps us divide a section or container into cells. So now we have these cells here. And in that way, the elements that inhabit the cell now relate to the cell regarding size and position. Remember, we talked about that before. But before it was to their parent container. And now the size and positioning is regarding to the cell. So in that way, we're taking a big container or a section and dividing it to smaller layout, like layout cells. All right, so now this text lives in this cell here. It inhabits this cell. And if I dock it, I'm going to dock it to both sides. I'm going to give it 0 from the left, 0 from the top. And I'm going to give it 10% from the right. And I'm also going to give it a 4% margin from the bottom. So when you give margin from the bottom without docking, or margin without docking from any side, it means that you're actually adding, it's like if you're adding an invisible like block here to this content. It's creating another content here that's pushing. And you see that as we go along. All right, so I think we're good here. So let's see the behavior of this. As I resize my canvas, you'll see that the text here is not changing in size. It's actually just reaching a point where it's breaking into two lines. And that's because it's not wide enough to contain these two words at this certain font size. That's cool. That's a real like cool responsive behavior. It's all right, but it's not what I'm going for. What I'm going to go for here is I want this text to change in scale. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I want to change the line height here, and I'm going to change that to 1. Yeah, that's better. And then I'm going to go to the text, and I'm going to click this scale text button here. All right, so now I can set 2 values for my font sizes. And that way the text will vary between these 2 sizes. I'm going to do 10 to 100. All right, so let's resize our screen again and see the effect of that. And now you can see that my text is scaling down. And it's scaling down and down and down and down. until it reaches mobile. And in mobile, it looks really small, right? But don't worry. What we're going to do is we're going to override this text scale setting when we get to tablet and mobile. So usually when I'm working, and this is like a good practice, I can see the breakpoints here. I can see that like desktop is 1001 pixels and up. So I'm going to check how this looks at 1001 pixels, like which is the limit of my breakpoint. So I just manually entered 1001 here in this window. And I can see that I'm happy with how it looks at 1001, and I can keep on editing. All right, next up, we're going to add some lines here, some decorative lines. So let's just add a line here. And again, we're going to use docking. We're going to dock it to both sides. We're going to give it 0 from the left, 0 from the top, and 10% from the right. That's the relationship that I want here. I'm also going to change the line color to white, and I'm going to change the line width to 1. All right, and I need another one of these lines, so I'm just going to duplicate it using Command D. And I'm going to bring it here. And again, I'm going to dock it on both sides and give it 10% from the right. Nice. Now we can add our paragraph here. And again, I'm going to edit the text, change it to the color that I want. I'm going to give it a font that I want to use. Let's see where that is. Yes. And also I'm going to make it italic. I'll just copy in the text that needs to be here. Right? I'm also going to give it a text scale, and this text scale is going to be 5 to 38. This, and again, I'm going to dock it. I can use just 0 here. I'm going to give it 4% from the top, 4% from the bottom, and I'm going to give it 10% to the right. Also, I'm going to change the line height here as well, make it more like condensed. 1.3 is good. All right, so now we have this paragraph here. And again, because of the text scale, we see that everything is still behaving proportionately and responsively. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this paragraph again by pressing Control D. And now we see that we have these two paragraphs on top of each other, and they're both inhabiting the same grid cell. I can drag and drag this paragraph into this cell, but there's also another way that I can use. We have in the inspector panel this grid area here. So we can see now that this paragraph is from column 1 to 2 and from row 2 to 3. And just a quick explanation, when we say 1 to 2, we're referring to the line here that's on top, and this is line 2 here. So if this text lives here, it lives in row 1 to 2. So I'm just going to move this paragraph to row 3 to 4. And again, this time I'm going to dock it to the top, and I'm going to give it 0 margins from the top. I'm going to give it 8% from the top, excuse me. I'm going to give it 28% margin from the bottom. So immediately when I give it 28%, remember when I told you that if I give a margin like without a docking, it's just like adding content here. It's like invisible content pushing the row height. And because my row heights are set to minimum 170 pixels and maximum max content, then now this content is pushing the row. And I'm also going to set it here to 10%. Nice. So now we have our text. Oh, we need to change this text. We need to change to 5 to 28. It needs to be smaller. I need some different color here. And of course, there's some different text in here as well. All right. And now we can add in our video, of course. So I'm going to go to my add panel. I'm going to go to media, and I'm going to add here a single video player. I'm just going to drag it in. And you see that as I placed it uh, on top of these two cells, it's now occupying row 1 to 3. All right. So I'm just going to dock it to the top in the left, and I'm going to give it a width of 100%. And of course, I'm going to change the video to the relevant video that I want to use. Add that to the page. There you go. All right, I think the last thing here that we need to do, we're going to cover now the part of the portfolio link where we're going to do a hover interaction. All right, so in order to create a hover interaction, I first need to add a container. So I'm going to go to the quick add a container here. Now, the reason that I need a container is that the way hover interactions work in Editor X is that you apply the hover interaction to the container, and then you do the changes on the elements that are child elements of that container. So it's easier to see it than explain it. I'm just going to change the width of this container to 45%. And I'm going to apply a grid here of 2 by 2. That's nice. And now I'm going to add another text here. I'll just make this docked to the top and left. And I'm going to make it 100%. And then I'm going to change the color here again. Change the font to the font that I want to use. And I'm going to change the text here to portfolio. And I'm going to give it scale text as well. So scale text is going to be 5 to 50 here, like that. And what I'm going to do now is another trick that I'm going to show you with the grid. I'm going to adjust the grid here. I'm going to edit grid. And then I'm going to turn this row. I'm going to make it max content. It now has a minimum of 100 pixels and a maximum of max content. I want it to be max content. And I'm also going to change the column to max content. And this is because the text itself is growing and shrinking as we change the screen width. So what I want to do, I want the other elements in the grid to respond to that change. So if I have an arrow, which I will have here in a minute, then if it needs to keep 10 pixels, it will always be dependent on this max content column. So let's just add that arrow here. Go to media. Where are you, arrow? There it is. Just add it to the page. There's my arrow. And then I'm going to add it to this grid cell here. And for the first time, I'm going to use the align panel here. So basically, I can align this arrow to the center. And it's going to be docked 10 pixels from the left. And I want the width to be a little less, let's say 24. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an image in here. Add the image. And I'm going to make it smaller. And I actually want this image to live here in these two cells. So I'm going to put it here. Again, I'm going to align to the top and to the left. And you see now that it's inhabiting column 1 to 3 and row 2 to 3. So that's perfect for me. I'm going to give it a 0 margin from the left. So now it's docked to the left of these two cells. And here in the top docking, I'm going to do something different now. So I'm going to give a negative value here. I'm going to say minus 8%. And what that will do once I press enter is it will make the element protrude out of the cell. That's because I'm giving it a negative value. Cool. And I'm going to change the width here to 90%. And now we have these two elements, these three elements actually overlapping each other. And what I'm going to do is just hit these three dots in the floating panel, and I can just send this image to the back. So I'm going to arrange and send to back, and now the portfolio and the arrow are above the image. All right, so now that we have our elements ready here, let's just do a quick check that everything is still behaving responsibly. All right, so what I see here is that we have like a maximum content for this. No, actually, what I need to do is dock this to the top. All right, I need to dock the whole container to the top and the left. I'm going to give it 0 from the left, and I'm going to give it 3% from the top, so we'll have some space here. All right, let's check 1001 again. All right, we're almost there. I'm just going to remove this minimum height here from the container. And also, I'm going to adjust this grid, and I'm also going to make this row max content, because now it's reaching 140 pixels and it's stuck there. I don't want that 140 pixels. I want the content inside the cell to determine the height of the row. It's very important to me. All right, cool. So now we're good in terms of layout. So let's just go back and now we can apply the interaction here. So I'm going to go to my inspector panel with my container, with my parent container selected. And then I'm going to go to interactions, add a hover interaction, and then a custom interaction here. And here we're entering interaction mode. And basically, we can edit properties here, and we can also use two states here. One is the hover state. That means how things are going to behave when I am hovered over this container. And we're going to first edit the initial state. That means we're setting we're setting it like in sort of a reverse way. We're first setting what happens when you're not hovered on the container. So I'm going to select my image here. I'm going to set the opacity here to 0. And then I'm going to select my arrow, and I'm going to rotate it minus 90 degrees. Now you see it's rotated. Now when I come back to hover state, you'll see that everything is as it was, because I didn't change anything in hover state. I want things to transition between initial and hover state. Another thing, but I am going to do one change here. I'm going to select the image itself, and I want to give it a slight tilt, like of minus 4 degrees, so it will give a slight turn as it appears. I can also edit the timing here of each animation. I'm not going to touch that right now. And you can also edit the time of each animation and also the behavior of the animations. They're easing in and easing out of the animations. All right, so we're done here, and now we can preview this. I left the border of this container on purpose just to show you what happens when I go into the container. So now, as I preview the site, you'll see that as I enter the container with my mouse, we have this hover interaction here going. How cool is that? All right, so I think that now we can definitely take this border off of this container. Go to the border in the design here, change the width here to 0. And let me just take a quick drink of water. All right, so now we can go to tablet. Oh, before we go to tablet, sorry. Before we go to tablet, you can see that our repeater items here, they're already they're laid out and designed, but the content is different. So just for the sake of time, I'm not going to insert the content here. Basically, what I'm doing is changing the content for each element. We're going to skip that and go to a version of this page where we already have the content inserted. So I'm going to go here to after content, and here's the content already on the page. Yeah, we also added. We also added this line here that divides between the items. All right, but basically now, if we go to tablet, we can see that the design is the same as we designed it in desktop. So it cascaded down, and now it's the same design. But you see for yourself that it's not looking very good because everything is a little bit crowded. Nothing gets the real focus here. So let's see what we can do to change that. So I'm going to go to the item, and I'm going to go to Adjust Grid. And now Editor X is offering me some layouts here. So it offers a 2x3 instead of a 3x2 layout, a column layout, which I don't know if that makes sense here. And then I have this 6-row layout that I think I'm actually going to use. So let's just click this. And what happened here? All right. So what happened is it's made a 6-row grid, and it put the elements into their corresponding cells by order. But this is not actually the order that I want, because what Editor X does, it takes it from the top to the bottom and then to the left, from left to right, and it arranges it like that. But we can easily and quickly change the arrangement of these items inside the cells. So I'm going to use my trusty grid area property here. So let's, for example, let's choose this text here. And we see now that it's from row 1 to 2. I'm going to change it from row 2 to 3. All right, and we know that we want the video in the first row. So I'm going to change that to row 1 to 2. And then we're going to take this paragraph here and change it to row 4 to 5. Take this paragraph, change it from row 3 to 4. And I'm going to take this container. I'm going to send it one row above to row 5 to 6, like this. And what else do we need to do here? Oh, yeah, we need to reposition these lines as well. So we'll take the line that divides between the items, and we'll put it in row 5 to 6 as well. And all right, this line here as well needs to go one line down, so it's going to go to row 4 to 5, and this line here is going to go to row 3 to 4. All right, so now everything is in the correct order that I want it to be. What I'm going to do now, first of all, I'm going to change the padding here of this item. We set it at 2.5, 6, and 4.5. And in tablet, I want it to be 5.5 from each side. And we'll make it 8% from the top. All right, so what we can do now, I'm going to adjust the grid of this item. And as I said before, I want the height of my rows in the same way as before. I want the height of my rows to be determined by the content that's inside of them. So what I'm going to do here, so by default, when I changed the grid, it gave it a minimum height of 200 pixels. I'm going to change all my rows here to be max content. And let's just change this as well. Changing this to max content. And also these two rows. I changed to max content. And we have an extra row here. We can just delete it, or we can just set that to max content as well. And because there's no content in it, it will just collapse, as you'll see in a second. So I'm changing this one to max content as well. And now this row isn't there. All right, so we're done with editing the grid. Now we can do overrides. So Gali talked about doing overrides to our design. So we're going to do overrides to our elements. So first of all, we're going to go to our name text here, and we're going to change it. And in Tablet, I actually don't need it to be a scale text. So I'm going to change it to a fixed size of 100, and I'm going to give it 35 pixels from the top and 35 pixels from the bottom. I'm going to go to paragraph here and also give it 35 pixels and 35 pixels. And I'm going to change the text size to 24. All right. And then I'm going to go to this paragraph. And as you can see, when we set this, the margins for this paragraph before, we set it at 8% and 28% from the bottom. And that's why, again, that's why it's pushing this row and making it so high. So I can just change that to 35 pixels and 35 pixels here. Let's just make it 10% from the right. And also change the size here. And it's going to be 16 pixels. And I'm also going to change the font size here of this text. I'm going to make it 40. And I'm going to make this arrow also at a fixed size of, let's say, 30 by 30, like this. I also want to make this whole container a bit wider in Tablet, so I'm going to change the width of the container to 60%. And I'm also going to give it a bottom margin because I wanted to push this row a bit, so we'll have some space between the bottom and this container. I'm going to give it 70 pixels here. Another thing that I want to change, and that will apply again, if we go back to desktop now, you'll see that nothing has changed in the way we design desktop. We didn't do any changes to desktop. So another thing that I want to change here, so we have interactions going on desktop, but I actually don't want to use interactions in tablet and mobile. I just want the content to appear without me having to hover or tap it. So I'm going to go and to the interaction and edit that thing on tablet, and that will cascade down to mobile as well. So I'm going to go to the initial, choose the image. I'm going to bring it back to 100% opacity. I'm actually going to change it as well to -4 also in the initial because I want it to be tilted all the time. And I'll go to my arrow as well and change it back to 0 degrees. And I think that's okay. Let's just preview this. So now you can see that in tablet, it's the interaction is not happening, and that's what I want. And in desktop, it still is happening as I hover over this container. All right, so I think let's just check. I like to check, as I said before, in desktop, I like to check the edges of my breakpoint. So the smallest point in tablet is 751, and we see that my design looks exactly as I want it to be at 751 viewport width, and the highest point is 1000 here, and it also looks good at 1000. So I think we're good for tablet, and I think we're almost reaching the end, but we now have to design for mobile. So let's just jump straight into the mobile, and immediately you see that like maybe something's wrong here. So why is this text protruding out? Well, the reason is, of course, because we set the text to be 100 pixels, it's 100 pixels here as well. So because of the cascading rule, so 100 pixels doesn't fit in this 360 pixel width. So I'm just going to change that. I'm going to override that again here. I'm going to change the text to 40, and I'm also going to change the margins here to 15 pixels and 15 pixels from the top. And I'm going to do that to this text as well. I'm going to change the not 230, 20, like so. Change the margins here as well. And also to this text. Uh, yeah, well, this actually needs to be, it needs to be 20 here. I just noticed that. And it needs to be 16 uh, on mobile. All right, now let's take care of this text as well. I'm going to change the size here to be 28, and also change this arrow to be maybe 23 by 23, something like this. And I want, when I'm in 360 pixels, I think I want this container to take the whole width of my item. So I'm going to change the width here to be 100%. And now it's taking, the container is taking the whole width. I can change the margin here because I think it's a bit too big for mobile. I'll change that to 50 pixels. So now I'm looking at it at 360 pixel width, and everything looks fine. But as I said, I like to check the edges of my breakpoints. So I'm going to go now to the highest point in mobile. Let's see what that is. It's 750 pixels. So I'm going to manually type in 750 here. All right. So I see immediately that something is not the way I like it, because I didn't mean for I set this container to be 100%. That's right, and by it being 100%, it's affecting everything inside. So if the image is 90% from the container, then it's getting too big here, and it's almost the size of the video. And let's see what we can do to fix that. So, for example, let's go back to 360. And you know what? Let's stay here at 750. So we'll see that if I select this container, we see that it has a width of 100%. But I can also set something that's called a max width. And this is like a really cool way for us to actually mix between the fluid and the non-fluid behaviors, because we can decide that this is going to be 100% wide, but I can also limit this with some fixed size. So I'm going to say that the maximum width for this container is 400 pixels. So when I press it, you'll see that it shrunk to 400 pixels. What that means is, while it's at 360 width, it can be 100% of my viewport width, because my viewport width is small. But as I grow my viewport width, I can just see that at a certain point, when it reaches 400 pixels, it stops growing. And now it makes everything proportional. I'm at 750, and it looks all right to me. All right, so guys, I think that we're good here, and that we're done with this workshop here. So I just want to overview what we did. So first thing that we did is we built a responsive design for the desktop breakpoint using a repeater and using a grid for the item itself, and also we used the grid in this container here. Then we added some hover interactions to bring our design to life. And then we worked on tablet and mobile breakpoints, changing the layout and design and overriding and giving different behaviors to different viewports. So, okay, so now it's time for the fun part where you guys get to build your own responsive design. So let's just go over what we're going to build here. So this is the brief. The goal here is to design one section containing an image, a title, a paragraph, and a button across 3 breakpoints. It has to be, of course, fluid within the breakpoint itself, like we showed you. And you can choose a layouting tool and design your site first on desktop and then on tablet and mobile. And again, make sure it's adaptive inside the breakpoints and not just do overrides between the breakpoints. Um, we will now share a template with some sample elements. So you'll be starting off a template, and you can exchange them with your own content, or you can use ours. And we also have some great Editor X experts here with us to help you, and you can use us and ask us questions and get live feedback. And I think we have about an hour or even more for this exercise. But before that, some of our Editor X experts, they're going to show you some examples of what they got, the same assignment basically as you're getting. So they're going to show how they designed this brief. Right. Thank you very much. It was really a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you, Gali. Thank you, Dribble, and good luck, guys.
Thank you so much, Ido. That was absolutely awesome to see you working so like knowledgeably and quickly through Editor X and showing everyone how to do responsive designs on there. So this is the chance that you guys get to create your own responsive website. So I've linked in the chat a link to templates, so you could use that template to create your websites. We've got about an hour to do this. The next 15 minutes, we're going to be bringing some Editor X experts up onto stage, and they're going to be showing you what they've created. They had exactly the same or similar brief as you, so you could get some inspiration from them. And then we're going to open the lounges, and they're going to be 8 different lounges with different experts in them. And so you could pop into each lounge, ask people questions, ask the people from Editor X questions, get help on getting your website designed, and then we'll regroup back here, and we'd love to see some of your work. We'd love to have some of you up onto stage to see what you've created over this next hour or so. So make sure you use the Editor X experts to ask all the important questions and get help with your designs. And then after this, we'll also be doing the Q&A. So make sure to keep putting your questions in the Q&A tab and upvote other people's questions if you like the look of someone else's question as well. So now I'd love to introduce Jonathan, Sevi, and Anastasia, the 3 Editor X experts. And they're going to be giving examples of the websites that they've designed responsively as well. Guys.
Hey.
So take it away. If one of you would like to share your screen into the green room, and then we'll share it with the audience.
Sure, I'll start.
Perfect.
Oh, that is mine actually, but I'll do it. Okay, hey guys. So I took this brief, and what I did is I created sort of like a nice designed, high designed menu here, a full screen menu. So first things first, I'm just gonna walk you guys through the process of what I did in order to achieve this design. But let's take a look and see what it looks like responsively. So as I resize the screen, here we get to the tablet version. You can see how stuff starts to move around, resize, and then we get to the mobile. So we'll just kind of go over what I did here. How did I build this? So that way you guys maybe get some ideas for your brief. So first things first is, like Gali said when we started, is you need to deconstruct the design. So just to understand what we have here in this design is we have we can see here from the layers panel, actually you can understand the actual hierarchy and all the relationships between the elements. You can see that we have the header, and we also have a section. So there's only like 2 sections technically. We have the header and the section, and the header itself is actually overlapping the section. So this overlap effect is actually available if you have a fixed header. you can cause another section to overlap another section. So you can see here, well, here on my screen it says pinned, but it's the same thing as fixed. And we have a toggle here for overlapping the next section. So now we have one section on top of another. And I did mention before that this particular menu is a full screen. So it's like full height. It's taking up the entire height of my screen. So just to click into the section, we can look on the right-hand side. I have for the height, I have it set to 100 VH. So this means it's 100% of the viewport height. So it's going to be taking up the screen no matter what screen size I'm looking at this at. It's always going to take up the entire screen. So it gives me kind of this full screen navigation experience. Okay, so now let's try to understand what's going on with the section. So in the section itself, I added a grid, mainly just because I have two siblings here. I have this sibling here with the menu, and I also have the image here. So I wanted to find a way to separate them and kind of organize them in a nice way. So grid is a great way to do this. And then, you don't need some complex grid to do this. All I did is just split it between, 50-50. And this image in particular inside of the cell is docked absolutely to the center of the grid cell. Remember, Ido mentioned that the actual relationship between the component that's inside the grid is actually related to the cell it's in, not to the section in this case. So it's in the center of the actual grid cell, and then we have the same thing for this. Now this, it's actually a repeater with two items. It looks like it's four, but it's actually two items that we have here. We have one item over here and another item over here. Let me just click on it from the layers panel. It's easier. So we have two items. You can see that these two items have the same design. And if I was to just, move it around just a bit, you will see that the other one will also move around. I'm just going to undo the change just to keep the design. But you can see that basically we have a design that is repeated across two items. And we actually have a grid inside of this item that's doing the same thing as we have in this section, that we're just splitting it in half. So it's very simple to do this. Then we have this is where it gets a little bit more complex with the grid settings, where I wanted to make sure that I have, the right spacing and padding between the text and the number. I wanted to make sure that I'm able to keep those gaps between them. So I added, I created a grid. It's actually, if you look at it, it's stuff that you guys were just taught. We're using max content here to keep the text the same size as the cell. And then we have FR units in order to kind of take up the remaining space. And then when I resize the screen, you can see that the text also resizes as well. And this is just, the text scale that Ido mentioned before, the same thing. I'm just resizing the screen, pretty straightforward. Moving on here, we're moving to the tablet. In the tablet, you can see stuff kind of moved around. This is just the overrides that we mentioned earlier. You can override the design properties of the component, including the size, the position, and also the grid layout as well. You can see how now we don't have on the section anymore the 50-50. I created a different grid just because I wanted to keep the image in a certain position on the bottom right. I didn't want it to cover the text too much. So I kept it on the bottom right that way, just using the grid container. It's a really great way to just separate the areas, so that way you can keep everything in its place. And then let's just go over to the mobile. And the mobile, it's a more simplified design, obviously, because there's less real estate. And basically all I did is I just docked the repeater to the bottom, and the image is on the top, and it keeps its nice distance this way. So this is my design. I hope to see you guys' designs later. I'm very excited for it.
Amazing, Seb. I love it. All right, now let's jump to my design right here. Okay, so it's basically a tattoo artist website. I've started by organizing actually in the site styles, my typography and colors that I want to use in this website. I love to keep everything tidy. I could use it on the flow, but I love to keep everything arranged here on the side as well. So I uploaded my font, my colors right here, and connected all my elements that I want to be colored to these colors. So if I go ahead and change this color, suddenly I want this to be, I don't know, this greenish color over here. I can apply and everything changes as well, whatever I connected. So like this over here, the logo, the typography, okay, with the simple click of a button. Let's go back to normal red. Now what I have here is basically a header, which is in fixed position. So if you see I'm scrolling, it stays on the top. I have this section over here with a grid of 3 columns. The left column is 100 pixels, so it's a fixed size. And we have these 2 columns split in two, with the stack on the left and the imagery on the right. So they're going to be fluid when I resize my screen because they're set to FR units. Okay, so that's a fraction of the width of my section. So if we go ahead and resize the screen, we see that they do scale down. Okay, like this. But this stays 100 pixels on the left right here. And on the bottom, I have this footer with just a simple text. Now, this logo over here on the top is docked to the left with 100 pixels as well, which is the same size as this container on the right. And this text in the footer is docked to the left as well with 100 pixels. Okay, so everything is tidy, everything is aligned, and looks good on desktop. If we go ahead and switch to tablet, we see that there's a little bit of a change here. Whoops. Let me just change this. Sorry. I'm doing this on the flow to max content. There we go. I want the content to determine the size of this grid row over here. So my stack actually has margins, 100 pixels on top and bottom. So this is what basically stretches my section's height. The section's height is set to auto. That's how the stack is determining the height of it. And I did use some text scale over here. So I set the text to scale as we scale down with our screen size as well, from 25 to 80. We switched the grid row to be rows only and not columns, and everything is arranged nicely over here on tablet. So we have the stack on top, we have the image. We switched this container to be horizontal, and this nice art right here as well, and changed the color of the footer. Okay, we just changed the opacity of the color actually from being this pink color. I want it to be white here. And if we go ahead on mobile, we see that I chose to not display the logo itself. We can see that in the layers panel. So I have this vector art hidden. If I switch this back on, we can see it. I chose not to display it. I chose only to use this text, and change the size of this header as well. So it's a bit smaller than we have on desktop. It's 100 pixels because it's mobile and everything is a little crowded in here. Change the text size as well to a smaller size right here on mobile. Kept the stack, of course, and changed the width to be fluid to 80%. Everything else has the same structure. We still kept the rows right here. I just changed a little bit the font sizes. Yeah, and now we see that it looks good on all screen sizes. Okay, we can scale down. Looks good on tablet, mobile. Oh, and another thing, you can also change the alignment, don't forget, of the text. Okay, you cannot change the content, but you can change the alignment of the text. So on mobile, I chose to align this to the center. And that's it for me.
And the last example of how far you can take your brief is this one. So here we can see that I wanted to keep it pretty simple, and I don't have a lot of elements in my design, but it's always nice to add some eye-catching elements. So here we have this nice interaction that's saying, oh, hey, and this is how I achieved it. I have a pretty simple grid here. As you can see, this dotted line is a grid 1 by 2, 1 column and 2 rows. And I spread my image to both of the rows. You can see it here in grid area, row 1, 2, 3. So now the image is taking all the place in my artboard. This element is 1 to 2. It means that it takes only half of my artboard. And the second part of my artboard, 2 to 3, is a container. And actually, the container is something that allows me to apply an interactions that you can find here in custom interactions. And what I did is actually I inserted 2 text boxes. One of them is hey, and the second one is the name of the designer. And what I did is in initial state, I set the second text of hey to opacity of 0. You can see it right here. And actually in preview, you can see that here we have this text of Sam Milo on 100 opacity. And like this, we have oh hey in 100 opacity. And also the site is fully responsive. You can see it here. We are going to tablet. And what I did here is actually I wanted to change the layout only of the half of my artboard. So what I did, I have a container here. So I applied a grid to this container. It means that the grid appears now on mobile as well. You can see it here, but not on desktop because of our cascading rule. It means that each change that you do appears on the lowest breakpoint, but not on the highest breakpoint. So actually, the good way to do less work is to make tablet and mobile layouts the same. So what you can do is to apply the same layout, but just adjust the sizes of your text or your images anywhere you have on your artboard on the mobile. So it keeps it simple and it takes much less effort from you. So that's it. And good luck with your web development. And we will be happy to see what you can do with our editor. And it sounds really how it sounds. Sebi, help me.
Thank you so much, team. That was amazing to see your different designs and what you created on Editor X. So everyone in the audience, these guys are going to be hopping over to the lounges. The lounges are now open. So if you wanted to chat to them or ask any questions or show them the designs that you have created to get some feedback, then definitely go to the lounges. There's 8 different rooms and you get a chance to put your camera on, put your microphone on and design alongside these experts. So head over to the lounges now. We're going to be doing this sort of personal creation work, web design creation work for the next 30 minutes. So make sure you utilize the lounges in the next 30 minutes. Ido and Gale will be here answering your questions. So if you didn't want to jump into the lounges, then stay here and get some of your questions answered. We'll meet back here in half an hour and then we'll go through some of your designs that you've created. We'd love to see some of you up on stage here and sharing your screen and sharing your designs. I put a link in the YouTube channel, but for all those watching on YouTube live now, it would be great if you could come over to this link to see us in the interactive workshop. We'd love to have you. So yeah, come on over. You don't have to watch on YouTube anymore. Come into this workshop link. Thank you so much. I think we will be putting the brief back up here for the next couple of minutes, just so you know what the brief is. But then after that, we will get Gale and Ida on stage to do some Q&A, and be sure to enter the lounges with the experts to ask any questions you have.
All right. Hi again, everybody. So I see that we have some questions here. Um, all right. First thing is, first question is by David Rosenblatt. Why use a repeater and not just copy the original design and pass it into the other grid areas? Well, when you're using a repeater, so let's say that you've designed using a repeater, and a repeater is for that purpose. You will want to use it if you want a design that's going to change across all the repeater items. So let's say that you created these repeater items, and I don't know, tomorrow you need to redesign your website. So it doesn't make sense to go and change it for each item. So you can just change the design or layout for one item, and that will apply for the other items as well. Another thing that I didn't talk about in the demo, which is a huge it's a huge thing to do with a repeater, is that you can connect a repeater to data. So basically, we have a way to connect the repeater to data. So each item is fed from a content manager. Like it can be like, it looks like a table in Editor X, where you can put your images there, your text there. And if you're working, for example, with a client, then he doesn't have to go inside the builder itself, inside the editor itself, to change the content or to do. He can just go to the CMS and change what he wants to change there, and it will reflect in the repeater. So that's a really cool application for that. Okay. So Juliet Sydney asks, the hover interaction, did you take it off on tablet as it wouldn't work on touch? So no, if I would have left the hover interaction on tablet, then it definitely would work on tap as well. It was just the choice that we made for this particular design. But yes, basically. When you set a hover interaction in desktop on touch screens, it will act in the same way when you tap that specific container. All right. Someone's asking, how do you control the tab index order of the web page? So basically, I can maybe even just share my screen for a minute. So we have our layers panel here. So the tab index goes actually from bottom to top. So let's see. I have if you for those of you who don't know what a tab index is, like it's an accessibility thing. So when you're using some users don't use a mouse or a trackpad for navigating websites. They will use their keyboard, and a tab takes them between the links that they can navigate through. They navigate by using the tab key on the keyboard. So the way we do it is basically just we arrange our content here in the layers panel. You see the most bottom element is the first. So let's say that if I would have a container and I had I don't know, 5 buttons on top of each other. So actually, the most top button will be on the bottom here. Right? This is the first one actually. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Ido. We have some questions coming in from YouTube as well. So if you guys are watching from YouTube, then make sure to either come into this session or ask your questions in the YouTube comments. One of the ones that we have is, can you add your own font? And will this be visible to people visiting the site?
All right, so the answer is yes, you can add your own fonts. For example, this font that we're using here is actually, I don't think it's a proprietary font that we have. It's an uploaded font. So I can just go here and go to upload fonts, and here I can just either drag in the font in here or just use upload font, and that will work. And yes, as you see the live version of the site, if you uploaded fonts into the site, the user will see them. It will be downloaded along with the site itself.
Thank you. Another YouTube user is asking, how do they change the color of the text?
Well, that's pretty easy. I actually did it throughout the whole demo. Just go to edit text, and you can just pick from colors, and I can even change colors in interaction. Remember, I showed you that we have interactions. Just for the sake of the example, I'm going to show it. So we have custom interaction here. And let's say that, for example, I want in the hover state to change the color of this text here. So let's say that I just want to change it to this shocking pink as I hover over the container. And then you see, as I hover, the text changes as well. Hope that answers it.
Good stuff. Thank you. So another question coming in, I saw this in the Q&A tab, and also someone asking on YouTube, can you show us how to do carousel images horizontally?
Carousel images horizontally. So basically, we have a few solutions for this. One of them is the Pro Gallery. Let's just see how we can do this. Just open a new page here, just for the sake of this. Basically, as well as a Pro Gallery, you can use a repeater as well. Like I showed in the repeater, where you can add a sliding layout to the repeater. But I think that we can use a Pro Gallery here. Let's just see. Yeah, you have a Pro Gallery that you can use. I just dragged it in. And this is just a built-in thing that you can use. And this is like the carousel here. I just pressed on it. All right. Yeah.
Cool. So another question, what are the most used sizes of breakpoints?
Well, first of all, I can say from the work that we do for our own sites, we usually just use the default sizes that come, and that tends to be enough to cover all of the options, all of the screen size options. And if you do a good responsive design, then you will not need too many breakpoints, but you can use like these sizes that are basically, after some research, someone got to the numbers, and these numbers are the like common numbers of screen sizes that can be used. But you can do it, you can change, like for example, if I want to different ranges here, so I can go here to customize breakpoints, and then I can just change changes to be like let's see, 1200, and then we have three ranges here that is 1200 and up, and then 751 to 1200. And let's say that I want another breakpoint in mobile. Let's say I want two mobile breakpoints. Then I can add a breakpoint here, and I can say maybe 450 here. And now I'll have a breakpoint for 320 till 450. Another mobile breakpoint here, and I can go up to as much as six breakpoints on each page. And when you're setting breakpoints, an important thing to say, you're setting them per page. So that means like there's a I can have one page on my site which has three certain custom breakpoints, and then I can have another page of my on my site that has six breakpoints. So it's really flexible in that way. Hope that answers that.
Good stuff. Thank you for all your answers. I just wanted to remind everyone that if they did want more personal help, they could head over to the lounges. We have 8 lounges open, and they're there with editor experts and responsive design specialists. So you could go into the lounge, you could share your screen with the experts, you could put your camera on and microphone on. So if you have any specific questions where you need help with your web design, go over to the lounges. Also, people on YouTube, if you want to come into this event and come into the lounges, follow the link that I put in the comments of YouTube. We'd love to have you in here.
So I
Okay.
see that Pavel is asking, what is better to use, a layouter or a CSS grid? So these are two different tools. One is based on CSS grid, of course, and the layouter is based on Flexbox. And what that enables you to do is it enables you to add elements um, into a layout, and you can set percentages of the width of these elements. And by doing that, and you can also use like limiting with pixels, then that will make your layout break. So it will actually, it might break even in break, I mean in a good way, not break your site. But what I mean is that it might even change between breakpoints, between not as you go to another breakpoint. Um, I'll try to get back to you and give a good example of that. And when we're using CSS grid, it's basically enables us to work, as I said in the demo, in subdividing our containers or our sections to different cells. And these different cells can have different responsive size units.
Cool. Someone's asking here, does anyone know if changing the orientation of mobile devices interact correctly according to the design of the breakpoints?
All right, so currently it's when you're rotating a device, it's gonna relate to the pixel of the design in the landscape of the device in the landscape mode. So let's say that you have a breakpoint that goes from 751 to 1000 here. So just a minute. So if I rotate a screen and the width of this landscape, like it falls above 1000, then it will show you, like say if I have a tablet that's maybe 800 pixels wide when it's in portrait mode, and then I rotate the tablet, and you will see it now the width is like maybe 1100 or 1000 something, then it will change and you will see it as it is in the higher breakpoint because it's in that range.
Awesome stuff. Someone else coming in on YouTube. How do you add a menu item to the top navigation bar? That would be awesome if you could share your screen and show us.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
So um, just I think I'll just open a new editor window for this, just to have a fresh site. We'll load up in a second. All right, so of course, right off the bat, as a default, when you open Editor X, there's already a menu here. And now, because this is a new site, we only have the home page here. But let's say, for example, that if I add some pages, like let's say I'll add here an about page, and I'll add a contact page. So I can go to the menu, I can manage the menu. I'll say add new items. I'll pick site pages. And now I can select the about and the contact pages as well. And you see that they're automatically added to the menu. Now, another thing that I didn't talk about in my talk is master sections. So master section, basically, we can access them through here. These are sections that can show on multiple pages. Changes you make to a master in one page will also apply to all the other pages in which this master section is appearing. So, for example, here in this site, let's just give these names so we can see what we're talking about. So we're now in the contact page, and now we're going to go to the about page. Just for us to know where we're at. And let's say that this is the home page. All right, so I'm on the home page, and this header is a master header. So let's say that I'll just do something like really, let's just add a shape here. All right, I'm going to take this shape and I'm going to add it to the master header. The fact that this is a master means that it appears on multiple pages. So now if I go to the about page, you'll see that the change that I did here, that the shape that I brought into the header, it's on this page as well. And that's a really good tool, like for again, headers and footers are like the classic master sections. But I don't know, maybe you're selling something on your site and you have a section that's a banner for a certain sale, and you want it to appear on multiple pages in your site. Then you can create that as a master section, and then you can decide on which pages this master section will appear. And regarding the menus, um, also you can see here that even in the default editor, when we go to tablet and mobile, you'll see that this menu changes to a hamburger menu. And this is actually, if you look at the layers panel, you'll see that the horizontal menu on the desktop is set to not display, and the hamburger menu is displaying here. So this is basically what Gali talked about when she said that in some cases you will need to replace elements rather than overriding them. So this is exactly the case that she was talking about. So we have a menu, a horizontal menu that's displaying on desktop. And here on desktop, you see near the hamburger menu, there's a not display icon. But when I go to tablet and mobile, you see that now the menu, the horizontal menu, is set to not display, and the hamburger menu is displaying. And I can actually go to this hamburger menu. I can open the menu and I can edit. The menu that opens is basically just a container. I can edit everything that I want to do here, and I can even add here elements that are not directly related to the menu itself. Let's say that I want to add maybe a social bar. So I can take this social bar here and can lay it out maybe vertically like this. And I also then I have a menu, but then when I open the menu, I also have a social bar in it. So it's basically just a container that can contain anything. Nice.
Nice. Thank you for that detailed explanation. Someone has got an interesting question here. Technically, at the breakpoint / different layout, wouldn't that be adaptive design, not responsive design?
Well, when you're doing layout overrides, then I wouldn't call it exactly um, adaptive design, but as we explained, like in the demo, and also Gali said that we have things that we want to change between to the different breakpoint ranges. For example, the way I changed the layout in tablet, but in desktop, we saw that we have a responsive design because I set values of things to be in percentage, and because we used like responsive units and text scaling as well, then the design was responsive. It meant that it kept like the same proportion as we resized the screen. And then on tablet and mobile, we also have some responsive design, like in the example that I showed. Let's just go to here. So in mobile, like in the example, you see that we're using here a responsive size on the width of this container. So it's 100% of the width of the item. But then I showed you that you can put a maximum width here if you want to limit the responsiveness.
Great. A bit of an update for everyone. We're going to be closing the lounges in 5 minutes. So make sure that you ask all your questions and share your designs with those lounges and the experts within the next 5 minutes. We'll all then regroup here. Gale will be coming back, and we would love to see some of your designs that you've created. You could share your screen with Ido and Gale, and then they could give you some feedback and some sort of review all of your designs, and we'll continue with the question and answer. So you've got 5 minutes in the lounges until we all congregate back in this main lounge. Another question here. How do you add content to a repeater?
I can just show that. That's no problem.
That would be amazing. Thanks, Ido.
All right. So the way you can add content to repeater is pretty easy. So you just add the repeater and just add it in here. And let's say that I want to add an image to this repeater. So I can just choose an image from the quick add panel. And then I can maybe even stretch it like so to the repeater item. And of course, now we're seeing the same image because I added it in and it's repeating. But I can change this. I can go to this image and I can change the content. Let's say that I want to add this romantic walk in the sunset here. And we can do that, no problem. And also, I don't know, this wooden partition. And if I wanted to, I can definitely add some text in here. So maybe I would change the color. It says add a title at each one of them, but it can be, I don't know, a mountain. It can be couple. And it could be, I don't know, wood. So that's how you add contact. As I said before, you can also use the content manager here. I don't know if we'll have time to show it now, but you add a content manager to your site. I'll just do it as we go along, and maybe we can make something happen here. So we can basically create a collection here and choose. I'll just choose a blank collection. I'll call it items, and I'm gonna create that collection. And let's just say the title is, I'll add some titles, like let's say mountain top. I misspelled that. Mountain top. Let's add another one called loving couple. And let's add another one. My God. And let's add another one called wooden office, right? And then we could add here another field here to this collection. This is pretty advanced, but I just want to show you the power of what we can do here. Um, I make this field type an image and call this field image. And now I can go to the collection here to add these images here. And let's say that I want an image of a mountain. Okay, I'll update that. And here, I want these images here. So I'll take this couple image, and this is gonna be our wooden window. All right. So what I can do now that I have this content collection, I can basically go to my repeater, and I can say that I want to connect it to data, and I'm going to create something called a data set. I'm going to add some items here, and the item I'm going to choose the collection of the items. And what I can do now is I can take this text and I can connect it to the field of text that I have in my collection. And I can also take this image and connect it to the image in my collection. And let's see if I preview this. And then you see that the repeater has actually connected to data. So just understand the power of this. So if you hand off a website to a client and he has like a repeater with all sorts of data inside, he can just go to the collection and update that. He doesn't need to go into the editor. He doesn't need to do any building. He just has to input data into a table, and the content on his site will change. And I think that's really awesome.
Very cool. So the lounges have now closed. Everyone should be back into this main room. I'll ask another question just as everyone's coming back into this room, and then we'd love to dive into having some of the audience on stage and sharing what they've created in this last 45 minutes. I know Ido and Gale would love to see your designs. So one more question first. And attendees, if you'd like to come up on stage and share your work, just raise your hand in the question and answer panel of the chat. Even if you don't have any work to share or you don't want to share your web designs, you could come up onto stage and ask a question face to face with Ido and Gali like I am doing right now. So head over to the question and answer tab, raise the hand emoji, and we'll see you and we'll bring you up onto stage. Don't be shy. Okay, another question here. How do you add sub-menu items?
All right. So as I showed before, you can also add submenu items. Let's see if I remember how to do it. All right. So I can just add a new item here, and let's. I think it's submenu title. Yeah. And Let's call this just submenu. And then I think I can just drag into the submenu itself. So now let's just preview this, see what's going on. So as you can see, as I'm hovering over, the submenu is here. You can design it in different ways, but that's the basic idea of it. I dragged the contact page into a new submenu. Cool.
Thank you very much. So, if anyone does want to come up on the stage, like I said, raise your hand in the question and answer tab. We have someone who has shared their work in the chat. I think the name is Kushduba. If you'd like to come up on the stage, just raise your hand and we'd love to review your work that you created a couple of days ago on Editor X. Opening it now. Oh, beautiful. Maybe, Ido, if you could open that link in the chat and share your screen.
Yeah, I'm already on it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Just bring
Great.
it over here. Oh, this looks amazing, actually. So we have a website here that's related to this book. Looks really nice. And we have this kind of animation. Is this like a GIF maybe? And we have this really nice um, about section with a CTA and some this social bar here. And let's see how this behaves in terms of responsiveness. So as we can see, so immediately something that I can see here is something's the book image is a bit cutting off. Uh, so that's probably because something with the proportion here is probably needs to be set in a different way. But all in all, this really looks amazing. It's amazing work. Let's see what happens when we go to mobile. Beautiful. So I can't pronounce your name, but this is really, really awesome work. Excellent.
Hey, hi, Ido. It's Kaustubh here. I think you were asking me how to pronounce my name right. It's Kaustubh.
Nice to meet you, Costo.
Yeah, likewise.
Beautiful site, my friend.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I think you were saying that I noticed that there's an issue with the cover, right? I think that it behaves a little weird when it's resized. So what do you think I should do?
Can you share your editor window? Is that possible?
Uh,
Maybe we can help him live.
yeah. Uh, so let me just share my screen. Yeah. Can you see my screen right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just go. I'm seeing it like pretty small. Let's see how we can change that. Maybe
Mhm.
this chat window can be a bit bigger. All right. So, all right. So I see what's going on here. What your height here of the image is set at a minimum height of 665
Okay.
pixels. So basically,
Okay.
the height is remaining the same, but the width is changing, and that makes the proportion of the image to be cut.
Okay.
So what I would do, I'd change. Can you just try to change? Maybe undo that afterwards. Maybe I don't want to create any like something disturbing your site. But change the minimum height to none.
Okay.
And now in the image itself, on the select the image again,
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
and try going to the the settings on the floating menu on the image.
Yeah.
No, the gear wheel. Yeah,
Yeah.
and try to do reset image.
Yeah. Did that.
All right. Now try to resize your screen. All right. So
Yeah. I
now the
think
image
it's.
is not cutting off, but
Mhm.
because it's in another grid cell, then it's like getting further away from the. So what you
From the
need to
title.
do, go to the wider screen resolution again,
Hmm.
and now what I'm going to ask you to do, go to the inspector panel and dock your image to the top.
Okay.
Now, can you preview that now?
Yeah. Oh.
No, but don't go all the way to tablet and mobile. Just stay
No.
in
Yeah.
desktop for now.
Yeah.
All right. So in desktop, we're looking better.
Yeah. It is. It is. I think I may have to rearrange the elements a little bit. But
Yes, you need to tweak it a little bit, but this is the
yeah.
general idea of what you're going to need to go for.
Yeah.
All right. That's very cool.
Okay. Yeah. This was really helpful. Thanks. I'll just
You're
stop
welcome.
sharing my
You're
screen.
most welcome. Nice. Do we have
That
some
was
more
very
examples?
cool. That was
That
amazing to
was
see
awesome.
you. Yeah, great that you were able to sort of edit that live on the go. I love to
Yeah.
see that. If anyone else wants to come up onto stage, share their screen, and get Ido's expert feedback and help editing live, then raise your hand in the question and answer tab. We've got a few questions in the question and answer tab also. If you wanted to have a look at them, and see if there's any there that you would like to call to.
Uh, Wait, I think I need to expand that again. Let's see.
Amazing.
Question and answer. Um, I think I may be missing where the question that we didn't answer. Do you have anything specific that you want me to answer?
Um, there are some in this Q&A tab. Is it possible that creating 6 breakout points would slow down your site?
Um, no, I don't think that's supposed to be any issue. Gali, do you have something to say about that? Um,
Okay. Thanks for bringing me on. So actually, we just posted an article about tips that can just make your site more performant. So you can check it out. It's in Academy X, our academy, where you can actually learn a bunch of the stuff we showed today as well.
Awesome. So Luca in the chat has asked, how do you make responsive tablets? Oh, tables, sorry. Is that possible?
Responsive tables. I'm not sure that I understand that.
Maybe if
What
Luca, you
means by
could,
tables?
yeah, if you could add some description. And if nobody else wants to come up onto stage to share your work and share your designs, everything that you've created within the last 3 hours, then we could wrap up a bit early here and give you guys some time back. It's been an absolutely amazing 2.5 hours of responsive web design. So we'll just wait a couple more seconds to see whether anyone else wants to come up onto stage and raise their hand, or if there's any other questions that you'd like to answer in the question and answer tab. Someone says thanks already. Okay, it looks like people are a bit camera shy and don't want to come up here with you, Ido. So let's get Gale back up here. Hi guys, thank you so much for today. It's been an absolutely incredible workshop. I don't know whether you guys had anything that you wanted to say to the audience at the end here.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. It was really fun, and it was so fun to see that people are from so many different places and join us. And also thank you, Doa. He's the master of this, so very cool. And I just wanted to say that you can always use our academy. Like I mentioned before, there are actually a bunch of lessons there and walkthroughs, and you can also always send us questions. We'd love to hear what you're having maybe issues with, or what new things you wish for us to work on. So again, thank you so much. And thanks, Dribble, of course.
Thank you very much, everyone. It was really a pleasure to be here with you this morning, this night, depending on which time zone you were in. It was really fun.
Thank you so much, Gelly and Ido, and thank you to Editor X for running this responsive design workshop. It was really incredible, and I think that everyone found it extremely informative and is left with a lot of inspiration and a lot of tips and tricks. I linked the link that you could use for a 50% discount for a year of the Editor X premium plan. I'm linking it again now, so make sure you go check that out and get your 50% discount. It's available for a whole year, and it's an exclusive, especially for you guys, as a thank you for coming to this workshop. I'll be sending an email after this with the recording to this event, along with the link to the templates for you to continue creating your web designs, and also the link to the 50% discount code. It would be absolutely amazing to see the designs that you've created in this workshop, and I know Editor X want to see them and reshare them and repost them and retweet them. So if and when you're sharing your designs on social media, please tag us at Dribble. We're going to repost every single design that we get, and please tag Editor X. They'd love to see your designs as well. So cool creating something alongside these experts, getting their feedback, and then sharing it with the world. So I hope that you've learned a lot, and I can't wait to see your designs on social media. We do these workshops every 2 weeks. So next week we've got, in a couple of weeks' time, we've got one coming up with the principal designer at MetaLab. He's going to be doing a creative UI design workshop. So go to dribble.com/learn to check that out. We've also got a 3D modeling free workshop coming up in November. So it would be great to see you there as well. A massive thank you for everyone who's joined on YouTube and in this event. Thank you so much for your questions, and thank you for your interaction and your positivity in this event. It's been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much to Editor X, and we can't wait to create alongside you again. See you soon.